Buck, how would you assess things 2 weeks out? And, oh, by the way, you also went and watched in person Ron DeSantis and Charlie Crist last night, I believe their only debate in the state of Florida.
It was quite a scene down in Fort Pierce, Florida. I'm down in Florida right now still doing the show from WIOD Miami. And I got to tell you, man, first of all, it was not on my expectations list that the single biggest takeaway was the difference in decorum, the difference in respect, because they separated it almost like a professional sports match. There was the DeSantis side of the room and a Crist side of the room. The Crist side of the room was just shouting. Now, people watching at home couldn't get that much of this because really the mics are what you're going to hear on TV, what's on the microphones. You probably, obviously the cheering you'll pick up, but the occasional shout, they were shouting liar at Ron DeSantis. They were shouting all kinds of things, trying to intentionally clap for a Crist answer and then keep clapping for 20 seconds over a DeSantis answer so you couldn't even hear his. Remember, it's 30 seconds and 30 seconds. So if you clap over somebody for 10 or 15 seconds, they were acting like barbarians on that side of the room for Charlie Crist. And I find out that sure enough, it's like a lot of teachers union officials in the room. The DeSantis side of the room was people that are, donors, supporters, people that have been like you and me who have been supportive of DeSantis publicly and on air. We were all, we clapped a little bit, but we were quiet for the most part. The thing that really came across, and they had to escort out some of Crist's people, by the way. They had to actually have police physically remove them from the auditorium. It's the most action Fort Pierce has seen in a while, I think. And the other thing you got from the debate, and we'll play some of the clips in a little bit, was Clay, just how Ron DeSantis at this point, the record is unassailable, really. How do you complain about a governor who's had the biggest in-state migration to his state in recent memory of any place? And Charlie Crist, I almost don't even want to talk about, really a desperate, pathetic, and slimy individual. Just the way that he answered questions. Look, you can oppose DeSantis and not like what he does and do so with some honor and dignity. That is not Charlie Crist. So it was a trouncing. But it was really interesting to see the difference just in both the audience and the on-stage personas and presentations that were given.
I think it's a sign of how desperate he is, Buck. I was on with Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino maybe an hour ago, and Charlie Crist was the guest right in front of me. So I was sitting watching him and listening to him on Fox News. And I was kind of stunned, Buck. Remember, first of all, Charlie Crist began his campaign by saying, if you voted for Ron DeSantis, essentially, I don't want your support, which I thought was kind of a crazy move because DeSantis won the last election. And so if you were going to win as a Democrat, you would think you would have to peel off some DeSantis supporters. He's now gone full Ron DeSantis. He argued on Fox News just over an hour ago, Buck, that there should be no mandate for parents to get their kids the COVID shot, which is the first Democrat I've seen actually say that. Credit to Perino and Hemmer for asking him directly that question. And he also said something that I haven't heard any real Democrat say, certainly not running for statewide office, the border's not secure. So Democrats are just abandoning everything and now just arguing Republican talking points in an effort, I think, to just confuse voters because what they have been making the case for has not registered and everything they've done is a disaster. And slowly they're coming to grips with 14 days from now what the result of that is going to be.
Yeah, you and I have seen plenty of people and our people listening right now have seen those who in the media will just say whatever is going to get them the biggest paycheck they can get at that point in time. And Charlie Crist is that just as a politician, meaning whatever gets him the most votes, right? Whatever works is what he's going to say, which is why he's literally been a Democrat running for office, an independent, and a Republican. And I think this is in the last 10 years.
Decade or so, yeah.
He's a guy who just switches with whatever he needs to in the moment. And look, he's going to lose, and he's going to lose hopefully by double digits, which would be a true statewide referendum in Florida, where I am right now. It would be a true statewide referendum, and it also means that Florida is, when you look at party registration now, solidly red in anticipation of the next election, and there's no reason to believe that would change. So that's all a good thing, Clay, and I was glad I got to go see it, and I saw some of our mutual friends all send their regards who were down here for the debate. The Fetterman-Oz debate tonight.
Yes.
I know we're in a bit of a preview mode for that, but here's where I am on this one. I think it is almost impossible for Fetterman to do anything other than avoid disaster. Like, I don't see how he can actually gain any points on Oz. I think the only risk that Oz runs in this debate for this critical Senate seat in Pennsylvania is maybe in some people's minds he could end up coming across as almost punching down in a sense because Fetterman is reading off a screen and he has an earpiece in that's telling, the whole thing. But there is the possibility here, I think. I'm wondering what you think. I think there's a possibility that there's a moment where people say this Fetterman thing is this situation's too much. Like this actually is not going to work.
I think there's a decent chance of that happening, just the optics of it. This guy cannot physically do the job. I also think, I will just say this, the media is going to be so in the tank for Fetterman, barring a disaster. Unless he passes out on the stage, they're going to, boy, he really came and went toe-to-toe with Dr. Oz. This is a pretty significant step because, so in other words, Oz is coming in as like a 28-point favorite, Buck, and if there is in any way a close contest, they're going to say it's a landslide for Fetterman. Almost, to be fair, the kind of expectations that Herschel Walker set up for his debate against Warnock, I think that flipped the race in Georgia. Was everybody thought Warnock's a professional talker. He's a priest. He's a minister. He's up in front of a group talking every single week. This is what he does. And then Herschel Walker wiped the floor with him. And I think it stunned people where even the New York Times and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution were saying, wow, Herschel was really impressive. And when they say that, it wasn't even close. Like they were like, oh, this is kind of a draw.
You
That's
really
the kind of
this...
rig job. It's like the Russian officials.
Yeah. Yeah, you call this in advance of the Herschel debate because you said this is old school SEC coach. Oh, we're just gonna do what we can. We'll see what happens. I used to play the occasional rec tennis tournament on the weekends for recreational players. Like no one who's actually really good. But there's all these tricks that people do. Like you walk up, you go, oh yeah, I haven't played in a long time, and man, I've really had some bad tendonitis, and you set up the expectation that you're not going to be that good. And then also in the other person's mind, it's like, well, now if I win, like, am I beating up on somebody who's injured? So these are the kind of mind games that people play all the time. I think with Fetterman, I don't think anyone's going to say that, look, Oz is a very smart, sharp guy, right? There's no way he's going to wipe the floor with him. I think what you will hear, though, which is the closest thing that they can get to it, is if he avoids all-out disaster tonight.
Yes.
They're going to say, see, he proved he's totally of sound mind and everything is fine, right? And like they're just going to try to wave the hand at anybody who says this guy is clearly not up for this on a medical cognitive level.
I'll give you the New York Times headline. Oz answered questions about whether he was physically fit enough to be senator, which was the most important hurdle he needed to clear. That's like that is the opening without the debate even having occurred. It's already written in the New York Times headline. Fetterman proves health, goes toe to toe. Like
Fetterman does just enough to allay concerns, something
right.
like that. Absolutely,
that is what will be the story coming out. But I do think the positive for Oz is I think he's already leading now. So I don't think that he needs to go into this debate looking for the knockout. Buck, you know how sometimes when you watch boxing matches, it's like the 8th round and the guy goes to his corner and his corner's just like, you better knock him out. Like, you're not looking good on the scorecards. I think that that's sometimes a dangerous situation. Like, I think Charlie-Crist, they were like, oh, you got to take some big swings. You got to argue that DeSantis shut down Florida. Like, all these things that are just total lies because you're so far behind, whereas you kind of just need to spar. That's where I think Oz is right now.
I think that's true. But with Charlie-Crist, there was definitely a sense of, you could say, hey, housing affordability in Florida is really a challenge. I mean, the moderator did ask something like that, and Charlie-Crist starts out with, well, I believe in a woman's right to choose. It's like,
yeah, right.
We're not talking about that right now, Charlie. He did a lot of that, which was just, I think the Democrats are scrambling on that one. But, Clay, I have a shot to call here. I know we've been saying this for a little while. I think Lee Zeldin's going to win in New York State.
Wow, that's pretty bold.
I think Lee Zeldin's going to get it done. I have faith. I want to tell you why. New Yorkers, I think it's going to happen.
Wow.
That's going to be momentous.
That would be shockwave result.
We're going to talk about this in just a moment. And, we talked about the Fetterman-Oz debate, which is going to happen tonight. Clay, you going to watch and live tweet it? What do you think?
That is my plan, but I always, Buck.
Is there like a really good football game on tonight? You can tell me.
No. It's Tuesday. It's dead. But the kids, like, there's always some obligation that the kids end up having that I'm not as. Mom is generally better at knowing all the kid obligations than dad. And so my plan is to watch, but I feel like there may be a kid obligation. If there's not a kid obligation, I'm 100% live tweeting and watching. It's only an hour, right? I think it's only an hour.
The one
long.
last night, the debate I saw with DeSantis and Crist flew by. I mean, it was an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very. And honestly, I think debates that go on longer than that. For one thing, I would say I don't think debates should have live audiences.
I agree with you 100% on that.
I enjoyed being, like, it's fun for the audience in the sense that it turns into a ruckus, but it's not good for the viewer. It's not good for the candidates. There should be no
agree.
audience at these debates because their misbehavior on the Crist side of the auditorium, then you don't want to let your guy, in this case, not have anyone cheering for him. I mean, so, it just creates this arms race of rules breaking, although, we stayed civilized. They had to escort some out on the other side. By the way, there was the best moment from the debate, the one that I think was most memorable, Clay, because I want to play this before. Here is Ron DeSantis talking about the only old tired donkey he's looking to put out to pasture. Play clip 2.
You're running for governor. Why don't you look in the eyes of the people of the state of Florida and say to them, if you're reelected, you will serve a full 4-year term as governor. Yes or no? Yes or no, Ron? Will you serve a full 4-year term if you're reelected governor of Florida? It's not a tough question. It's a fair question. He won't tell you.
We did not agree on the candidates asking each other questions.
Time?
Governor, it's your turn.
Well, listen, I know that Charlie's interested in talking about 2024 and Joe Biden, but I just want to make things very, very clear. The only worn-out old donkey I'm looking to put out to pasture is Charlie-Crist.
I like it when Ronnie D takes a little shot. And by the way, people were saying, oh, he wouldn't answer. There was an explicit rule agreed to that the candidates would not ask questions of each other. Only the moderator would ask questions. Ronnie D plays by the rules. Not going to, because if you concede to that one time, you're going to keep conceding that. And also, who cares? The guy wants to be governor. He's going to run for governor. He's going to stay governor, rather. He's going to be amazing. And Charlie-Crist is going to lose by 10 points. You watch.
Yeah, I also think the criticism of you're doing such a good job that people want you to get an even bigger job is not one that really registers that well. Now, look, I have place in Florida. I know how much people love Ron DeSantis. I understand the argument of, hey, we want to have him all the way through 2026. But to me, it's a little bit like, and I'm not trying to take a shot at Florida, but just, the presidency. If you are an elite level college athlete, at some point you decide that you want to go to the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball or whatever it is. That's a natural growth of your performance as a candidate and as an elected official. So that line of attack of, oh, he's done such a good job that people may want him to run the nation instead of just running Florida is not, to me, a very good argument, right? So that is, in some ways, I feel like an endorsement of the situation.